Hi, I'm Linda Davis, a member of Anna Aspanis' creative team. Following my last video, a viewer asked, like Janet, I too have a stash of Anna's products but never feel like my page looks right. For me, the challenge is getting my main photo to look complete before I add transfers to the background. I find it difficult to know which blend modes to use, in what order, and in conjunction with the layer mask. Do you have a tutorial on your photo treatments? I would love to see a demonstration of what you did with the magnolia blossom. In response to this request, I'm going to share what I did with my magnolia. I use Lightroom to catalog all my photos. Am I an expert in the program? No. But I know the program well enough to make some basic edits in the Develop module, and that's where I began with this photo. On the right is the basic panel. Above that is the histogram. You can tell by the peaks that because they're more toward the left, I'm a little underexposed. So what I did is I upped the exposure. You can see it happening over here, plus 0.45, which is about half a stop. Clarity, I raised that, up that 10, plus 10, and vibrance, plus 10. Now I am ready to export this to Photoshop, and I do that by pressing Command E. And I want to send over a copy with the Lightroom adjustments. So I press Edit. It's in Photoshop where I create the sketch or apply filters. There are a lot of different ways to create a sketch, but I like the results I get with this simple technique. And there are several versions of this on the internet. I've added a link to one source dated 2003 in the description of this video. First thing I'm going to do is duplicate the photo by pressing Command and J. Then I'm going to turn off my background layer and I'm going to desaturate this layer. I have two options for doing that. I can go up to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate, or I can use the keyboard shortcut, which is Shift Command U. And I have a black and white copy. I am going to duplicate this copy by pressing Command J or Control J on a PC, and I'm going to invert this one. I can go back up to Image, Adjustments, Invert, or use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control I, and now it looks like a film negative. The next thing I do, I go to the blend modes and I change it to color dodge and it will disappear. But if I go up to filter and choose other minimum, then my sketch returns. I'm going to leave the radius at 3. What I really want is really only the outline of the petals, and so I don't need it anymore, any heavier than that. You can make your sketch heavier by moving it all over, but this is really all I need. So I'm going to press OK. Now I'm going to create a composite by pressing Command, Option, Shift, E, and I'm going to rename this Sketch Composite. On a PC, you would be pressing Control plus Alt plus Shift plus E, and I'm going to turn off these two layers. And before I turn on my background layer, I am going to change the blend mode on my sketch to multiply, and then I will turn on my color layer. And if I enlarge it, you can see the sketch lines going around the petals. My next step would be to drag my sketch composite and the bottom color layer over to a new document, but to save time, I've already opened the document. I've got my sketch resized in my original document. Now I can close the Photoshop document. I am not going to save it because I already have a copy of this, of the sketch in Lightroom, so I'm just going to close it. Okay, now I'm ready to start with the blending. Anna has two brush sets that I use almost exclusively for blending. Anna blends Artsy brush sets number 3 and number 4, along with the default soft, round, and hard brushes in Photoshop. Wanting texture in my photos is why I have moved away from using primarily the soft, round brush for my blending. Now I use Anna's blending brushes far more. And that's why I created my own brush set. And you can see it up here. If I press B, you can see my soft round, my hard round, and then these are the brushes from Anna Blend's Artsy Brush Sets 3 and 4. Okay, and I'm going to press V. If you're interested in making your own brush set, there's a video on Anna's YouTube channel in which I share how to create a brush set. Anna Blend's brushes are not opaque like the center of the soft round or the hard round brush. They're much more transparent, even at 100%, even if I stamp at 100%. Before I begin working, let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to create a new blank layer and turn off these two layers. And with black as my foreground color, my opacity at 100% and normal, I'm going to stamp. I'm using the hard round brush, and I'm going to stamp. And you can see how opaque it is. And I'm going to go up and use the soft round brush and stamp with it. Even in the center, it's very opaque. But if I go down to the brush I want to use, and this is Anna Blend's Artsy 4, brush 2, and I stamp, let me choose it. You can see there's quite a difference. I asked Anna about this, and she said that these brushes have gradient edges with subtle texture to yield gradual transparency in the blending process. Well, that's what creates the texture and allows the background to come through through your photo. I love this texture. Because Anna Blend's Artsy brush sets are designed to be more transparent for blending than using the soft round brush in Photoshop, your background paper definitely affects what your photo will look like, even without changing the blend mode from normal to something else, say multiply or overlay. So I'm going to turn on my background paper, and I'm going to turn the sample off, and I'm going to turn these two layers back on. I'm ready now to start on my blending. And one thing I wanted to show you, because someone asked about this on my last video about my brush panel. When you open it up, normally you see here are the brushes, and this is the little wheel that you can turn to change the angle or adjust the spacing. But I also use something called shape dynamics, whether I'm using my little Intuos pen tablet or my trackpad, which is what I'm using today. I have adjusted the size jitter to 25% and the angle jitter 25%. What that means is when I stamp, if I turn this back on and just stamp at the bottom, you can see how it flips it around. That's what I'm talking about. And I can unlock this, change it, and lock it back. So I will turn this off. Now I'm going to invert an inverted mask to my original copy. I'm going to use my sketch as an initial guide for my blending, and I'm going to press Option or Alt and the layer mask icon, and it disappears. Now I have my brush, my opacity set at 100%, which is a little too high. I actually want it closer to 50%. And I need my foreground color white, so I'm going to press X, which will switch it back, and I'm going to start stamping. And once I have enough on, okay, I'm going to turn off my sketch because I won't need it. Now I can change the size of this brush two ways. I can use the bracket keys, okay, or I can use a command, Control Option, and then slide left or right to change my brush size. And I believe on a PC that would be Alt plus right click and sliding your cursor left or right. So I'm going to continue brush stamping on this and getting what I want. I think I have. And you can see, you can hear my trackpad in the background. If I get too much, I can always go back and change my foreground color. Now, one of the things I often do is I check my mask by pressing Option or Alt, and then I can see just my mask, and I know I want that center, so I'm going to really stamp that to speed this up a little bit, and I press Option Alt again and click the mask, and my photo is back. I want just a little more. How about here? I am not going to be able to get this exactly what is on my original, but this will be close, and this is to give you an idea of what the process looks like. Okay, that's about it. Just a little bit there. Okay, now that I've got that there, I can turn on my sketch because I want that outline. But there is a way, rather than having to mask the sketch separately, I can copy this mask up to my sketch layer by pressing Option or Alt and dragging it up. And now my sketch is masked, has the same mask, but I can make adjustments to it, and I think I'm going to, because I want on my sketch, I want the outline of the petals to show just a little bit more. Okay, that looks close enough. Now what I'm going to do, once you have your once I have the blending and masking for my original color layer and the sketch layer, then that's when the blend modes come into play. These are the blend modes at varying opacities that I use most on my photos. If I'm just sending a photo over and I want to add it to a mask or a frame, if the exposure is still too dark after I've adjusted it in Lightroom, I'll often lighten it with a levels adjustment layer on screen blend mode or a curves adjustment layer. However, for this page, I want to make my photo pop, especially those flower centers. And so there are some blend modes that I use when I want to do something like that. Normal, of course, the bottom layer. Color burn and multiply are the darken modes. They reduce the light colors, and whites in fact will disappear. Screen or color dodge are the lighten modes. On those the blacks disappear. Overlay, soft light, hard light, vivid light, these are the contrast modes or midtones. The dark, it darkens the darks and lightens the lights. Well, for this photo, what I'm going to do, I'm going to darken first, and I'm going to press Command J to duplicate this layer, but I'm going to change the blend mode to color burn. I'll put this a little larger so you can see what's happening. It really does make a difference. I'm going to change the opacity on this to 80%, about 80%. This is color burn. And then on I'm going to duplicate it again. And this layer I'm going to change to overlay. Let me get that up to overlay. This is overlay. And this opacity, I'm going to take it all the way up to 100%. Okay, once I have the duplicated layers in blend modes determined, I can go back and make adjustments on the mask. Say I want a little bit more on my original. Maybe I want just a little piece of this or a little bit of that, and I can reduce my opacity even more, a little bit like that. I can copy this change to another layer if I would like by again pressing Option or Alt and moving it up to the next layer. Photoshop will ask me replace layer mask. I say yes. And so now that mask also has the same adjustments. And if I don't want to, if I want to do something different on an overlay, on the overlay mask, I can do that. Now if I go back, I'm going to turn all of these off. Remember I said this is not going to be exactly like my original, but I'll show you what happened. Here's my original photo. And when I use the same blend modes, original, color burn, overlay, and sketch. I did the same thing with the extractions, except I merged the layers together on the extractions. So that's it. That's the photo. That's how I applied the photo treatment for my magnolias on this layout. I hope that this video about the photo treatment I applied to my magnolia has been helpful to you. Playing with Anna's brushes and blend modes offers so many possibilities for making your photos stand out on your pages. I have shared only one example today. The Anna Blends Artsy Brush Sets are available in Anna's store under Brush Sets. And if you haven't experimented with the Anna Blends brushes yet, I hope I've convinced you how great they are for blending. Brush Set 4 has 10 distressed brushes designed for blending, and Brush Set 3 has 12 brushes. Please let us know what you would like to know about how to use any of the products that Anna designs by leaving a comment or sending Anna an email at anna_aspinus@yahoo.com. Your feedback, comments, and questions about what you want to learn really do help us plan future video content.